We're going to have a real fast 60 minutes here together. We're going to try to show you a whole bunch of things in a very short period of time. To be more specific, I'm going to show you some technologies we've created to allow you as a developer to use Eclipse to build jQuery mobile-based applications that you wrap with Cordova, and then you can push out to a phone, a specific device. In my case, I have an Android device and an iOS device up here, and we're going to show you some demos of those. And we have also worked on some other technology called AeroGear. Maybe you've heard of that one. That specifically allows you to do things like push notifications from the server side, let's say within your enterprise environment. And as things change within your enterprise, push notifications out to the actual phones themselves through the Apple network and the Google network. So APNS, Apple Push Notification Services, and Google Cloud Messaging. We're going to show you that also. And I'm also going to talk to you a little bit about Vertex as well, which is another technology we've been working on that allows you to do some real-time push kind of applications, show you some real-time web-based applications so you can see what that looks like. So we're going to have some fun, and I'm going to cover a ton of ground in a very short period of time, and hopefully it'll be exciting and entertaining for you. How about that? I know it's close to the end of the day, and things are a little, you might be a little bit tired and feeling a little bit low energy, so my job here is to pump you up a little bit. So we're going to focus on push mobile and some cloud technology. I'll warn you now that my presentation here in the movie theater is rated N for nerd. We're going to show you some code. We're going to play in the IDE. We're going to have some fun with that. We might even see a command line if we're not careful. All right? One thing I like to talk about is the concept of the programmer evolution. And the reason I put this up here is to give it some context. As programmers, we've had to learn a ton of things over time. And here I am going to show you a whole bunch of new stuff today. And of course, you're at DevOps because you're trying to keep up with what's going on in the world, right? What are these various people talking about? And back in the 70s, I don't know if you guys were programming back then. Actually, I was not, but I knew some people that were. They were using COBOL, maybe they used WFL. I did see WFL before, workflow language for Unisys, or JCL, job control language. And that's all you had to really know, right? You didn't have all kinds of, you had the green screen, you had to put things in the right columns, and that was it. And in the 80s, we kind of came out with this stuff like C, C++, there was 4GL technology. We came up with this concept of relational database, though we also had hierarchical databases and network databases and things like that, and Unix. And so we also had to think about learning interactive development and distributed development. So it was a lot more than, let's say, development where the user fills in a screen and they hit the button on the right F key on the keyboard. They had to do a lot more. And you had to learn a lot more. So in the 90s, we learned a lot about HTTP and HTML and CGI maybe. Maybe you learned what get, put, post, and delete were. You learned what a cookie could do. You learned a little bit about Java maybe, servlets, EJBs, things of that nature. You might have learned something about Windows, using Windows as a server in the 90s. And you probably learned a little bit about Solaris or AIX. So again, the knowledge base you had to have as a programmer continues to grow into the 90s. And in the 90s, we also had to teach people how to do like event-driven programming. Like there's a button on the screen, and when you click it, something happens. I used to teach programmers way back in the day, and it was kind of interesting to show the person who normally wrote batch applications what it meant to build an interactive, event-driven application from the user interface standpoint. In the 00s, the early 2000s, man, things like struts and Spring MVC, and when it comes to things, Spring for dependency injection, Hibernate for object relational mapping. We did all kinds of things with XML and web services back then. We did all kinds of stuff with Java server faces, or maybe we learned things like rich internet applications with AJAX. So we had to learn yet a whole ton of new things as well in those early days. Some things that are interesting, though, I think, that are still around with us today. Well, Struts is still around with us today, for sure. But automated testing, continuous integration, those were introduced back then. And we got really used to that in our development environment. Again, more tools, more technologies, more techniques we all had to learn. And we learned a lot about AJAX, asynchronous JavaScript, right? So you could actually make the call from the client to the server and not have to block the client. You could kind of continue about your business. And so what's kind of happening now, right, 2010 and beyond, into the, hopefully, 2020s, we had to learn a lot about EE6, a lot of good stuff happening with Java EE6, a lot of good stuff happening with HTML5. Now we're talking about mobile, and pretty much every developer who does normal desktop web is thinking about what does my desktop web app look like on a mobile device. And if you're not already gone there, you're going to be going there soon. It is a significant thing that we're all facing right now. And maybe you've learned a little bit about some of the ins and outs of iOS and Android. It's no longer good enough to know Linux and Windows as your primary operating systems. You have to know iOS and Android as operating systems also. Maybe you've picked up some work with PhoneGap or Cordova, and I'm going to show you how to do some development with Cordova and PhoneGap today. But maybe you've already explored that option and learned how to wrap your HTML5-based applications as native applications or hybrid applications, to be more specific, that you can then deploy to the actual device. Maybe you learned Rails. Maybe you might be learning Rails. Maybe you're learning all kinds of stuff happening in the Node.js world, right? Certainly, a lot of people here picked up Git recently. You're not just doing SVN anymore or CVS. I suspect some of you out there are still doing CVS, but I won't ask you to raise your hands. But, a lot of people are doing Git these days. And then, of course, the NoSQL movement is pretty big, and everybody's got to be doing Hadoop at this point, right? So the open source world has really exploded all around us and created all these new technologies that we have to have some knowledge of. If we're an architect, you have to know what all these things do. You don't necessarily have to put hands on each one of them and go down to in levels within each one of them, but you have to know what they all do and where they all fit in the overall infrastructure for your organization. If you think of the enterprise systems you're creating, you have to understand what all those things do. And we're now learning about this whole asynchronous and reactive programming model that people are talking about. We kind of learned it with Ajax. We saw it there, and now we're kind of getting more into it. And we'll show you some examples of that here in this presentation. But, ultimately, every programmer wants to be like a superhero. And we certainly get paid well to be superhero-like in many cases within corporate IT or any kind of consulting organization or software vendor. But, we continue to evolve and continue to learn, and it is a lot to learn. So I tell you that just so you can go, okay, I got more to learn. I got to know what Apple push notifications are and GCM is. I got to configure those things, and it's not fun. I'll tell you that now. I won't actually show you the configuration because you'll all go to sleep and leave the room. But just be aware that you got to continue learning. It's fun to learn. This is kind of exciting stuff to learn. So let's talk a little about something else that's happened in the last decade or so. I did this presentation in 2010, actually. I put these numbers together. So I contacted a friend of mine and said, hey, you remember when you used to sell me hardware back in 1999? I had to build web systems for people. Yeah, you remember the prices, because I kind of have a vague idea. And I had a fellow go look these prices up. So if you actually bought, say a nice Solaris box to put your app server on, you might have spent $18K for a simple box, nothing special, right? Just maybe enough to get some development stuff done. And then you might have bought some WebLogic licenses, because that's what we all did back then. You got a $60K worth of WebLogic. You might have got a database server. That was a little bit more beefy, because we like to buy beefy. If you're in a typical IT department, right, buying great hardware is always a great place to write checks. People love writing big checks for great hardware. So you might get some nice database hardware. You might have bought some Oracle, because we all used Oracle back then. And you know what? We forget. We all bought our IDE back then. We really did. People used to buy their development environment, which is some people are thinking, wow, I don't do that anymore, right? I use Eclipse now. I use NetBeans, things like that. But the total cost of that system, just to get your Hello World web app up and running, was close to $500,000, plus $87,000 for yearly maintenance on that, your support and maintenance. And so in 2010, I did their numbers again, and I looked at GoGrid as a cloud provider as an example, and I contacted those guys and said, hey, what does a little old server cost me for like my app server? $2,000, you'd get that for an annual basis. And maybe I needed JBoss support if I wanted JBoss instead of WebLogic there, and maybe I want another server for my database server. Again, those are example numbers. And then maybe I wanted a Linux subscription for support on the Linux operating system, and maybe I even wanted to still pay for my IDE and bought the my Eclipse license or subscription to actually get that. The difference that I think that's very important here is not necessarily the money, though. All right? So the money is interesting to talk about, and it's interesting to see, but really what's critical is the time to market is what's vastly different now. So if you think back in 1999, it would take you at least 6 months to acquire all these licenses and all this hardware if you worked in a typical enterprise. Because you'd have to go through the RFP process, you'd have to contact multiple vendors, you'd have to shop it around, you'd have to get it installed, a consultant and a team of consultants would come in and install it all for you, and then you would have it and you could start writing your first line of code. It took that level of effort. We tend to forget that. You guys are thinking, well, maybe it took that for you, but it didn't take that for me. This was a fairly common thing when I was a consultant to go out and work with various clients to do this sort of thing. It takes months. Just doing the RFP process alone was a nightmare. And in 2010, you could go to GoGrid and get all this configured, get it set up. You could probably do it in about a day or two. Maybe it'd take you a little while to get in touch with whomever you wanted to get the support from, kind of thing. But today with Openshift, you can do it in about 10 minutes. You can go to openshift.com right now and sign up. Just give us your email address and basic password setup, and it'll validate your email address. So if you give it a Gmail address, you go to your Gmail, it says, please validate, authenticate, or this particular email address, and then you're off and running and building an application. And it costs you nothing, and you can do it in moments. So I think that's a game changer for a lot of us. Not only have we had to learn a ton of new technology and think about all these different things and how they fit in our overall infrastructure and architecture, now the world has changed. And if we have an idea, we can implement it instantaneously as programmers. And I think it's amazing to be a programmer in this day and age. People who can actually create, not consume, but produce, can do almost anything they want to do now. And I think that's absolutely amazing and incredibly fun. So I'm hoping, again, I'm trying to energize you guys and make you guys think maybe a little bit differently. You can look at some of the technologies I'm going to show you today, and maybe you can go, hey, I now can build mobile apps, or I now can build push-based applications, or I now can build real-time-based applications. Maybe you didn't think you could do those things before. Another thing that's changed over the last few years that I think is amazingly awesome is it's now a three-horse race. You remember back in 2002 when everything was IE? And I used to think as a developer, I actually was doing a little bit of .NET down there. I did Java and then I did .NET for a while. I was like, hey, this is awesome. Everything's Windows and everything's IE. I don't have to test across multiple platforms or operating systems. I don't have to test across multiple browsers. I can just dump this stuff on my users, let them test it. That's what happens, right? You guys have seen that before. Forget about automated testing. I got all these accountants over here going to run my application, or lawyers or financial people or marketing people, whatever they were. But in the last few years, things have happened, and unfortunately what was bad about that era is things stagnated. The browsers didn't move forward, if you will. IE didn't really evolve. It just kind of got stuck. And some people are still stuck in IE6. How many people here are still stuck with IE6 as a platform they have to deploy to? No hands. Amazing. That's actually hard to find. Either that or you won't raise your hand. That might be it. Well, IE6, of course, is pretty much dead and gone. But this day and age, there's corporate entities right there, whether it be in Europe or Asia or America, who can now say, we do Chrome or Firefox as our desktop standard. And it's self-updating. We're not behind the curve anymore. So that's amazing. The other thing I think is pretty awesome, and I just did this chart for 1 year. I did this chart. I tried to track it for 1 year, and then I gave up. So this is about November 2010 to December 2011. I really have not updated it since that time frame, December 2011. I said, how many different pieces of hardware and stuff that's happening in this mobile world? Right? We already said iOS and Android are really happening, and actually they're taking a tremendous amount of market share when it comes to actual physical computing devices, personal computing devices versus Windows. And so now we have 3 different operating systems in the game, right? iOS, Android, and of course you have your Chrome and your Firefox, and you have your Safari even in the game. And so all what's happened here with all these mobile devices specifically is we have all these different form factors. We have these different iterations and versions of Android out there. We still have got Android 2.2 and 2.3 used extensively out there. Some of you guys may have an Android 2.3 device in your pocket right now. You know, it's just pretty common. Now, that's not as true on the iOS side. iOS does a pretty good job upgrading. Most people upgrade as soon as the operating system releases, at least, let's say 40+% upgrades within a week or two, it seems like. Apple does an amazing job of that. And I've seen that actually happen with novice users who are relatives of mine, like, oh yeah, I just upgraded iOS 7. I'm like, it released last night, are you insane? Yeah, they didn't care. And they were happy with it. But what this does tell you, hopefully, if you kind of look at this chart, I'm not going to read you the details because you're thinking, oh my God, is that real? And I may have something slightly wrong in here, but I really did sit down for hours and research, okay, what was this device and when did it happen? When did this device happen? And all these different vendors, all these different carriers across the globe, and they all have their different little special sauce on Android, let's say. iOS is pretty much the same across the board, but just those two, iOS and Android with a little bit of BlackBerry in there, maybe some Windows Phone, and you've got a tremendous amount of stuff you've got to deal with. So into this world comes hybrid mobile application development. So yes, you can be an Objective-C iOS developer, and we actually have an SDK for you. JBoss and Red Hat do Objective-C, and you can run that in your Xcode. We also have an Android Java SDK for you as well, which is kind of interesting. But I'm here to show you HTML5 hybrid development, because I think this is where the average person will wish to go, the average Java developer will wish to go. You already have to mess with HTML a little bit anyway. You already have to mess with JavaScript a little bit anyway if you build browser-based applications. Unless you were really that, flex person, maybe you didn't actually touch it at all, but you know ActionScript, well, you're still kind of halfway there when it comes to learning this kind of programming environment. And so we built a bunch of new tools. And so that's really what I want to show you. I want to show you how we build, or you build, a jQuery mobile-based application inside Eclipse. A couple of key high points before we jump into demo mode for that is we have a lot of support for HTML5 and mobile capability with specifically a jQuery mobile palette, which I'll show you. We have 2 new simulators, a browser simulator that allows you to say, what does this thing look like on an iPad or an iPhone? And it's purely there for mobile web development. So think in terms of mobile web. And then we also have a Cordova simulator that's going into beta now. It actually just shipped in beta last week, and I'm going to show you that one also. That allows you to basically say, okay, if I wrap my app as a hybrid app, and now I can take advantage of phone-specific features like accelerometer, the contacts on the phone, the GPS. I can simulate those things also. I'm going to show you a little bit of that. And then we also have a new, as of beta, a hybrid application project wizard. So I don't know if you guys have tried doing PhoneGap Cordova before, but it can be pretty painful to get Hello World up and running in some cases, depending on the environment you have. We've actually now tried to say, look, file, new, project, and you're off and running. Okay, and of course we do all the standard Java EE stuff, JSF, CDI, JPA. We do, we're the guys behind Hibernate. We even have some great stuff in Maven. If you guys are a Maven shop at all, you'll want to see our plugins for Maven on top of the stuff. And actually, most of it's been donated up to Eclipse proper at this point. But if you want Maven integration, we have great Maven integration, and of course that zero time to market when it comes to deploying to OpenShift. We have an OpenShift wizard, so you can deploy it right up to OpenShift immediately. But let's go ahead and just show you this. One final point on that, Eclipse Marketplace. Don't do this right now. We need the network to work for me here. But you can go to Eclipse Marketplace in your Eclipse and say, type in JBoss, and then download all of the things that I'm going to show you right now. Okay? So Eclipse Marketplace is how we deploy it. So let's get over here inside Eclipse and give this a go. All right, so Eclipse and give this a go. All right, so the first thing you'll notice here is JBoss Central. So this is just a dashboard that we put up there, and you might think, oh, you're putting that up there for marketing reasons. No, not necessarily. We're trying to make the getting started experience easier, and we're trying to put the information we think you need at your fingertips. Like we have a fantastic tutorial called Ticket Monster, which allows you to do things like buy tickets online for the opera and for sporting events and concerts and things like that. It walks you through a full HTML5 front end with a JAX-RS back end and how to build that out as an example. So that's a cool tutorial. But we also have like a HTML5 project archetype. These are Maven archetypes, including Java E6, Spring archetype, and a Rich Faces archetype. We actually have a few more archetypes, but these are the ones we find that people really gravitate to. So you can immediately start building a new Maven-based project by just following those wizards. I'm not going to show you those wizards, though. I'm going to show you the thing we just put out there in beta. And I'm going to go to File, New, and this one's a little bit hidden. It's under Other still. All right, so under Other, type in Hybrid. And you're going to see it right there, Hybrid Mobile Cordova Application Project. And I'm going to click that and hit Next. I need to give it a name. Let's call this the DevOps Hybrid 1000. I'm just giving it a made-up name. We'll just keep it all the same. Whoop, if I could type properly. And then think of this as a package name. It's required for the Android side of things. So, just do it like you would if you're a Java person. And so what's going to be produced here is an actual application that's ready to go for iOS and Android, but it's all HTML5. So I'm going to hit Finish there, and you can see it drops it right into the IDE right here. And let's open up index.html. It's a very simple application just to get you started. It says Apache Cordova application powered by JBoss. So this is our visual page editor, so you can edit HTML and you can kind of see what it looks like. And there's a little WYSIWYG preview. I can also navigate down here, and so if I want to, add something to it, add an exclamation point. You can see the source editing up there. I tend to stick in source mode, but you can see that's what the code looks like. It's fairly simple, fairly straightforward. And I can immediately say, you know what? I like that application. That might be what I want to deploy to my end users. And we now can say run as iOS simulator. So this is actually going to run the normal Xcode iOS simulator. And it's going to go through the process, if you watch the console carefully, of generating the entire Xcode project. So it's going to generate the Xcode project, lay down Apache Cordova, or PhoneGap, if you prefer that name, and it's going to run that project and then crank up the iOS simulator. So here it is. So that's the app. Now, it's a very, very trivial app. I understand that, but it took nothing to get started. And I can run that on Android. I can run it on my Android device. But I want to show you what we've done with the Cordova simulator. So what we're going to do is run as Cordova simulator. Okay. And we're going to show actual size. And let me see if I can kind of, move this around a little bit. We're going to focus here on this window for now. There's a lot of features in this simulator that I'm very excited about. The team has worked very hard on for the last year or so. You can actually reskin it, so you can actually say, look, I want to know what the iPhone 5 is versus iPhone 6 might be. You can actually set up these profiles yourself. And then you can also say, well, let me look, what the Android might look like. And it basically is for mobile web, and in this case, mobile hybrid applications. We basically are simulating that environment. Is it perfect? No, it's a simulation, right? But it's close, and it gives you an idea for what your app's going to kind of sort of look like, and also kind of sort of behave like. Like if you actually do have code against the accelerometer or against geolocation, you can simulate that here. That's what this thing's for. This is actually the Ripple editor. It's an open source project that we took advantage of, and we actually brought it into the IDE environment here, so you can actually interactively work with it. So let's have a little fun with that. Let's go to, I'm going to double check something here. Go to servers. So I have this thing called a live reload server. And I'm going to make sure that's turned on, enable live reload. And let's see if I have it hooked in correctly. So there's our, let's see here. Let's just add a few more exclamation points. And flip over, good. All right, so the nice thing behind live reload, and you can't see it unfortunately with this little tiny desktop I'm running right now, but typically, as many developers do, I'm sure, what I do is I actually have a nice external monitor, maybe another monitor, and you can spread it out across everything. That means you can actually say, I want to see what the iPhone looks like, I want to see what the Android looks like. So you can actually say, if I want the Android tablet right here as well, you can have all those open, and then you can kind of watch them change as you make changes, which is pretty cool. So you can kind of know immediately, the tablet version of this thing is really not working out well. And if you have responsive design of all that kind of capability, it's all good too. Take a screenshot, set it up for debugging, and of course we have a new feature we just added, enable touch events. So we actually found a few websites that actually are coded only for touch, mobile websites, in which case they didn't work in our emulator, so we had to kind of go back and fix that as an example. And one thing, you guys remember back in like 96 when you're first learning how to do web programming? Maybe not that, but I used to go to different websites way back in 96 and say, you know what, I want to do a view source. I want to see what those guys do, as an example. And you can bring up a lot of these things. Here, let's just bring up more. Let's just go a little crazy here and open up a few of these things. Let's get the Galaxy Tab version and show actual size. I want to turn it on its left because I want to see the horizontal view of this. And maybe I want to look at Allianz again. Pop these guys open. Okay, so you can kind of see they're kind of responsive, right? They give you the big desktop view and the tablet view, but on the mobile phone, they kind of give you the nice stacked view. And you can use different websites for that. And, you can come in and say, view page source. So I don't know if you've ever tried doing that with your standard desktop Chrome or Firefox. There are ways to do it with various plugins and whatnot, but it's kind of a pain in the butt. Here we just added the feature, so you can kind of go see what other people are using, find out if they're really using jQuery or Angular or whatever it is you might think, Knockout, Backbone, figure that out for yourself. So I'll just show you, I just want to show you that. And then, if you just want to close these things down, fine, shut it down, no problem there. And if you want to bring it back up, it's just run as on Cordova Sim, as an example there. All right, so let's go a little bit crazy here and really start changing this thing up. All right, so let's change this application. So we showed you how to get the default template application up. I'm going to delete that template. I'm going to leave the Cordova JavaScript in there. But now I'm going to use the jQuery mobile palette. So we chose to use jQuery because it has really nice out-of-the-box widgets for doing what looks like a nice little mobile app with HTML. So some people are like, I want top code. I want Bootstrap. I understand, but this thing just really works easily. So we wanted to find something that was very easy for people to use. You get a little WYSIWYG preview here of what that page would look like, and I'm going to add a jQuery page. And this can be a single page application. So this is my stuff. All right, save that. So there's what it looks like so far. So we'll keep going. And again, normally you could see it all simultaneously. It's much nicer instead of being hidden there. But I'm going to add a panel, because I don't know if you've been using a DevOps application or maybe you use Facebook, but they have this cool little sliding panel on the left-hand side. So I'm going to add a panel like that. And let's go. We need to add a button because you got to have a little button to pop up the panel. So let's do panel 1. So this is standard jQuery again. And we're going to say, I need an icon. I want the bars. And I want it to be icon only. And let's hit finish. Let's see what that looks like. And where are we? All right, there we go. Check it out. The panel doesn't have anything in it yet, but we got a little sliding panel there that magically appears and disappears. So let's add a menu to it. And if I'm going too fast, I apologize. But we don't have a lot of time together, and we want to show you a lot of stuff. So we're going to have some fun here. Let's just take the default options. But you can actually change the number of items in the list item component there for jQuery. We're just going to take the defaults, check that out, let's see what it looks like. Oh, cool. Now we got some buttons there. And notice they're not to any links specifically yet. We'll worry about that later. What else do we want to do here? Oh, let's add a dialog box. Yeah, that'll be fun. So let's add a dialog box right here, and I'm going to call this the About dialog, and I'm going to finish. And let's see here. Let's change its content. This is a cool app. This is a really cool application. And if I could spell, it'd be even cooler. There we go. And I'm going to come down here now, and let's add the panel for the the button for the About dialog. And we're going to call this About, and that's going to be the pound dialog 1. And let's get this right. And you can see open dialog. That's a feature of jQuery Mobile also. And I can change its icon. That'll be info icon. Let's see here. scrolled off the end there. I got to go find it. And then in icon only, hit finish. And let's see, there it is. Boom. All right. So, all right, our app's starting to shape up here. Well, we can keep going. Let's have a little more fun with this application. Let's add a couple more pages to the application because, you know, this is it's not a real app. You have some pages involved there. So we're going to add more pages to our single page application. So let's call this the details page. I'm going to take the footer off this one. Maybe I want to change its theme, make it a little bit more colorful, standard jQuery mobile themes. One thing I forgot to mention is to add reference to JS and CSS. When you check that box, we make sure that you have the jQuery from the CDN, the jQuery mobile, and the right cascading style sheet from jQuery mobile there. So that's why you get the proper look and feel. So we got our second page in there. Let's add some form fields to it because at the end of the day, when we're developers, what we do is we grab stuff on the user interface and shove it back into a database on the server side. We need form fields for that. So maybe I want to capture the person's name. I can also set a default value, pattern, placeholder, max length. You guys are thinking, wait, where'd that come from? These are HTML5 attributes. So now in a mobile application, right, you can take advantage of HTML5 attributes when you may have not been able to do that on a desktop application, IE6, IE7, right? That was your corporate standard. You can do it for iOS and Android. So feel free to take advantage of the placeholder if you want. And I'll say maybe I want first name and last name. Okay, I got to type last name here. Let the person type that in. And you can change its, the minification, or sorry, the mini is pretty cool too, but I'll just leave it, pretty much as defaulted there. And let's keep adding them. Let's go, we want an email address, and this is even better. Yes, email is a type now, and it validates it for a proper email address. I'm going to hit finish. Let's add another one. Let's say I want a phone number, all right? And the phone number is a type, all right? Tell, all right, awesome. Let's say I want a website for this person when they come into the application. All right, we want a URL right there, okay? And what else do I need? Oh, I need a birth date, because we're going to send them a nice note on their birthday, maybe a push notification on their birthday. So birth date, and we're going to say I want a date for that. All right, so let's, and I need to add that into the menu. If you remember earlier, I just have this generic menu. So let's put the right link in. Boom. If I can type correctly, page 2, and we're going to call this, new contact, just to give it a name. All right, and boom, let's see here, new contact. There's what those form fields look like. All right, so our app's starting to shape up. We're getting a little bit more complexity in it, having a little fun with it. Let's actually query for some data. Let's see that. So in this case, if you notice, it's all HTML so far. There's nothing, I didn't actually write any real code. But let's actually throw some code in here. So if I go into, this is my stuff, right? We don't want that anymore. What we want to be able to do here is actually inject a list of contacts, let's say. So I'm going to add another list view. That's the common technique in jQuery Mobile, right? List view. And I'm going to say, let's call this contacts for now. And I'll just leave the default values in there because we're going to replace those. And let's remove that. If we save and look, let's go back. Oh, and I forgot to add the back button and the menu on that page. So I have to go hit this button over here. There we go. So, boom. All right, so you can see item 1, item 2, item 3. That's the default values I just put in there. And so let's go write some code. All right, so there's a little bit of JavaScript associated with this application, and there will be some JavaScript associated with your application as you go forward with this. But device ready is the standard PhoneGap way to say, hey, we got everything set up in our environment. Now you go do your business logic. And I'm just going to cheat and copy and paste here. I hope you don't mind. But I'm just going to do a standard $get.json. This is standard jQuery to hit, in this case, a JAX-RS resource on the server side. I can hit save there now. And there's John Smith. So that's data from the database coming from the application server that's running here on my local machine. So I have some dynamic data there. Let's have a little more fun with this, all right? Let's do something else here while we have a few moments of your attention. Hopefully you're finding this entertaining and interesting. Let me see, that's page 2. I'm gonna add a page 3. Yeah, let's add a page 3. Boom, and let's call this cool stuff. Cool stuff. And this time, remember to check the back button. It's nice to have a back button up there. Okay, so in this place for cool stuff, I want to add accelerometer, just to show you something native to the device itself. And that's why you do these hybrid applications versus just mobile web applications, is you have access to some features and capabilities you otherwise wouldn't have. So I'm going to just put in some placeholders, if you will, for my little accelerometer application. I need to hook up the menu. So this is going to be page 3 now, to get my mouse on the right location. And boom, there we go. And we actually added some, this basic content context assist as well. I'm working on that. All right, save. And whoop, let's go back to our thing here. Let's see here, item 3. All right, so right now those are static values, right? I hadn't actually added the code for them. If we go back to index.js, and I'm just going to copy and paste that code as well, because you do have to write some JavaScript for this sort of thing. So in this case, I'm going to actually acquire the elements, get element by ID. I didn't actually use the jQuery version of that. I thought, let's go back old school there. Get element by ID, and then I have on success or on error. Pretty straightforward stuff. So basically, call me back when you have some accelerator stuff that's happened, or if there's an error, let me know. And then all I need to do now is watch for the appropriate events. So if I come in here and boom, if I get that right, let's see here. And we'll drop it in here. Save. And let's see, did we have we set this up? Oh, you notice it didn't actually work, right? And we got an error on the page. And that's because this is actually Cordova 3, PhoneGap 3. And everything in the new Cordova world is actually all plugin based. So I got to add the plugin. And one of the features we added is install Cordova plugin. So I'm going to go in here and say install Cordova plugin. This requires internet access, so hopefully it will load correctly. Come on, come on. Uh-oh, there we go. All right. And I'm going to type in motion. So this is a type of motion, a motion plugin. All right, and I'm going to hit finish and hit save. And let's see what we got now. Let's see what this thing looks like. Okay, now they're all zeros. And with my Cordova simulator here, the Ripple simulator, I can say, hey, let's simulate what that accelerometer behaves like on the client-side machine. So come on, open up for me here. Oh, it's not going to open the window here. What's up with that? Okay. You know what? We'll restart you. Maybe that'll make you want to open up. Run as Cordova Sim. All right. Yep. I know. We're too big. It's not going to open up the dialog. So we obviously have a bug here to figure out what it is. Maybe my screen resolutions have made it not want to open up the little window. All right. None of them are opening. Okay, well, we'll figure that one out. But in any case, let's go ahead now and run it actually back on the iOS simulator, because I want to show you one other thing about the application. So again, it's going to now produce the Xcode project, right, wrapping it up with Cordova PhoneGap and giving me an application now that I can interact with. And where to go? Over here. All right, let's see what this thing looks like in the Apple world. All right, so that's that. Accelerometers are not simulated there, but let's check out this new contact. All right, so one thing I want to show you here is these, remember, type text, type email. Notice we get the different keyboards, type phone, website, birth date. So that's amazing optimization for the people who are doing data entry on their phone, right? And I don't know if you guys have been to a website lately that doesn't use these things properly, but it's painful to do anything on their website. You don't want to have to type in a date with all the appropriate syntax for that, or better yet, a phone number. So just that little trick alone is very nice. Okay? Once you get all that set up, you, of course, can take this application, shoot your back end up to Openshift, and basically tell your clients, right, you can take this application, and if you pay the $99 to Apple, you can then deploy it through the App Store and through the Google Play Store, and then tell your users to go download it. Simple as that. All right, and that's a hybrid application. Let's jump back into slide mode, and we'll keep going here. We got to keep rocking and rolling. And so, AeroGear. So if you're going to build a cool push mode, a good mobile application, right, you got to have some real mobile native stuff in there, if you will. And so accelerometers, geolocation, that's kind of cool. But what we're finding that's going to be incredibly engaging for the average enterprise developer is and these aren't I'm polling kind of notifications. These aren't long polling, comment, or any of that. It's not even WebSockets. These are true Apple push notifications that flows through Apple servers. These are true Google push notifications that flows through Google servers. So we provide you with the JavaScript SDK for this, as well as other access to a remote server, some really interesting features for create, read, update, and delete. And we're working on some additional security capabilities also. But if you're an Objective-C guy running an Xcode, we have an SDK for you. If you're an Android guy running an Eclipse, we have an SDK for you, or if you use Android Studio. And of course, we support Apache Cordova, as you just saw with some of the demos I just did. So you can secure the interaction with the server. You can read, write, and update, delete off data off a REST endpoint. And of course, we're working on some interesting security features also, because if you think of the mobile environment, what happens if they lose the device? You start to worry about those kinds of things. We have a one-time password. That's a little bit like, if you guys do the Google two-factor authentication, right? You then send you an SMS text message with the one-time password you use for that very moment. as an example, working on some client-side encryption, working on some additional data sync capability and offline capability, and even geofencing for Cordova users, which is cool. So you can actually know if your user has passed through a boundary or out of a boundary kind of thing. So really cool stuff happening in the AeroGear project. At the highest level, this diagram kind of captures what's going on in the push universe. How many people have actually set up push notifications with any of the major vendors out there? Right, 2 of you, 3, there's a couple in the back there. Well, was it fun and easy? No. Yeah, it's kind of painful from my experience. I've tried several different push providers, third-party push providers that are out hosted in the cloud and things like that. And so I'm just telling you, it's not click 1, 2, 3, like I just showed you. It takes a little bit of involvement, if you will, and I'll show you the basics of it. But the idea is, as a developer, you got to register with Apple, pay the $99, get set up on developer.apple.com, and you got to create a certificate, or you got to create a certificate request. You got to go to Apple's website. They got to produce a certificate. You got to download it, and then you got to upload it to our server. Okay, that doesn't sound too bad, maybe, but the $99 alone stops a lot of people. They just won't go there. If you're a Google person, you still got to go to the APIs console for Google Cloud Messaging, and then you got to go in there and say, I want to set up Google Cloud Messaging and turn that feature on. And then you got to know what your project ID is, and you got to know what your there's a little secret string that you have to have there too. So you go as a developer and you get those things configured with Google and Apple, and then you come to our server, which is, I'll show you in a second, a web-based console where you upload those 2 parameters, and you say, that this is now my unified push environment. You send one message to us, we send the message out to them, and they in turn send it to whatever telecom provider or internet connection, et cetera, to get that thing routed to the actual device for the user. Should be noted, these things aren't guaranteed message delivery, and we don't know how long it might take. And when I try to do the demo here, based on network saturation around here, it might take a few seconds or might not work at all. We'll see. We're living dangerously here. But you set all that up on our server, and we take care of moving that message along for you. It should be noted also with the client-side SDK, we actually provide the plugin, or we use the Cordova plugin right now. We're looking at doing some other things, and we also give you the SDK for iOS and Android. And when that app runs, it boots up. In Apple land, it says, hey, would you accept push notifications from this application? And you say yes. Right? The user always gets to opt in or opt out of these things. And when you say yes, that registration comes to us and basically says, now we have the device token, right? We now know who you are, if you will, from the token standpoint, and we can then alert you with the push notifications you said yes to. There's another capability here, which I'm totally going to gloss over because I'm going to focus on the push notifications, but there's also simple push in here also, which is a new standard coming out of Mozilla, and we've added the polyfills for different browsers, so it's not just Firefox. You can do it with Chrome or IE even, and it allows you to do real-time push to the browser also. And it's not a polling mechanism. It's actually a browser-specific extension that's coming out in the future. So there's a lot happening in this space if you think about real-time capability. And the ability, more importantly, to make a change on the server side that all your users, or the users on the server side that all your users, or the users you care about see. So I'm going to log into our Unified Push server. This is running a local host, by the way. You can download this, run it right on your machine. And I'm going to go, if I type the password correctly, good. I have one application in the mix right now. It's called AeroDoc. And with AeroDoc, I'm going to drill down on it. I can add a new application. You can see the application ID and the master secret there. And I have 2 variants. So in other words, I know that I need an iOS variant, which has iOS-specific configuration. I have an Android variant with Android-specific configuration. And let me hit Add Variant here so you can see what that screen looks like. So you'd give this a name. My demo or whatever, give it a description. And this is where you upload the Google API key, the project number and the API key, that secret key that I talked about earlier. And then if you have the Apple APNS set up, you pay the $99, you've gone through the certificate process, you upload the certificate, right? Because basically whenever our server makes a handshake with the Apple servers, it has to authenticate to that certificate. So that's about it. It's actually not that hard. It's actually all the stuff at Google and Apple that's kind of painful. It's actually not too hard once you get to this point. You just fill those in, hit create, and then you're ready to go. Okay, and if you notice, let me drill down here on this guy. You can see we actually give it a variant ID and a secret also. So that's so you can communicate to us. You can see that there's 2 registered devices here in Android land already. And let me go back here to iOS. There should be one under iOS also, though I've not looked yet. Oh, there it is. So I have 3 devices, right? I have 2 Android devices and an iOS device, which I've set this up on. This is our web application to kind of illustrate the point. So you think in terms of your everyday web application. Let me kind of get these things going here, get these things started. And you think of the average web app you've built for your various customers or users at your company. You got all kinds of data that's changing all the time out there in those lands. So nothing new there. Let me see if these guys are awake properly. And let's see, okay, no, not quite. Gotta wake up. And I'm running all this off my server here. You can see I actually have some authentication errors that are throwing an exception, but those are not a problem. But this is just all running here off the local server. You guys, you're thinking, why am I showing you a stack trace? I don't know, just to show you it's real. Okay here, so I gotta log these guys out. So let's actually come over here. So you kind of see what I'm doing. Let's see if this will work for me. And let me see here, and let's log this one in. So this is Jake, this is Maria. These are my sales staff, right? And as things come into the system, there's one record in the system right now for Dr. Who. Let's log in here as the person at the desktop. His name is John. All right, so there's Dr. Who. So the idea is I have sales reps, I sell stuff, I have sales reps all over the world, and what I'm going to simply do is when I capture a lead because it came in through a phone call or website hit or whatever, I'm going to dump it in the database and send them a push notification. So let's see if this works out pretty well. Okay, so I'm just clearing the deck here if things go well. Okay, fantastic. Okay, I don't know if you guys, oh, I had it covered up, you didn't see it, but that's okay, we're going to show you again. We're going to create lead here. We're going to call this Fred Flintstone, how about that? So Fred Flintstone decided they're going to buy something from us. I can't quite type. Bedrock. And here's the phone number. All right, hit save. Click on Fred. Click on my sales agents here. I'm going to contact Bob and Maria and Jake. Send lead. Let's see here. There it is, all popped in. Did you notice it? It went fast, didn't it? That's insanely fast, actually. This is the best the network's performed since I've been here all week. I wasn't sure if this thing was going to even run. Let's do this again. Barney Rubble. All right, and so he's also in Bedrock. And of course I didn't spell it correctly. Hit finish, click on Barney, search agents, and I'm gonna kick it out to all these guys. You can't quite see Bob, he's up here. This is Maria, this is Jake, and send lead. Let's see if it comes through this time. There it is, Barney Rubble. Oh, it's taking a little longer on the, see, you notice that? It came into Apple faster, came into Google a little bit slower, and you'll see that. Sometimes Google's wicked fast, sometimes Apple's very slow, and it might even take a minute or so to get some of these things to the system. But just keep in mind, what happened here is I'm updating, this is localhost for me. I'm updating my own server. I made a change to the database. I said, send a push notification based on that change. It basically hit our server, which is running here in the same environment, right? I'm running all this right here. And it went out to Google and Apple and said, hey, we want to send a push notification to these specific users. So I can actually say, I want to update only specific users as well. Maybe I favor one of these particular sales reps, want to give them all the leads. But you can actually identify based on, people who might be awake right now. Maybe that's the logic you want to add to it, because that's a fairly common thing to do in this world. So these guys went to sleep. Let me turn them back on, okay? And let me show you the other feature over here. Let me click on, so I'm Jake. I'm going to say, Barney Rubble, I know him. I'm going to make him my lead. I'm going to go after him. I'm going to hit the accept there. And did you notice it disappeared from Maria's desktop or Maria's mobile app? It goes away. She got a push notification that said, sorry, that one's already been taken. It's been taken out of the queue. Maybe I want to click on Fred here from Maria real quick and hit accept. And then if it takes a second, and again, it's these guys, these mobile applications are communicating with REST endpoints here running on my laptop, going out to Google, going out to Apple, and making that update happen. So it's kind of far out if you think about it. It's like magic. But it does require a bit of setup to actually pull that off. So this is a Cordova-based application. Just to kind of run, it's just right here. If I want to update it, I can just say run as Android application. And if I have my USB plugged in, I can update the app right there on the device. And I also have it here in Xcode. So I can say, it's kind of off here. If I have it plugged in via USB, I can just update the app and run it right on my device. And again, in this case, you have to pay the $99 to do that. But if I come over here to the app, let's just kind of look at it briefly. It is an Angular application. All right? So let me see, how do we make that point a little more clear? So there's the controllers, there's the services. Oh, the data service is kind of cool. So this is actually where we actually have some additional API. I mentioned we have these SDKs for your client. We have client libraries for you to use. So we've actually kind of given you some additional capability for just basic create, read, update, and delete. So it just makes it cleaner and easier than the thing you saw me use earlier in the previous demo. So in this case, you can see that we have to also authenticate too. You have to authenticate against the server through this mechanism. But that's important, right? You don't want everybody in the world just calling your REST endpoints because they happen to be available to mobile devices. So you got to authenticate, and you want to basically say, I want to register, log in, log out. I want leads. What leads are the guys I was showing you earlier. Here, and here's the REST endpoint. Let's see there. Oh, and there are no available leads. I took them all out of the system. I have to go add someone. They're all been accepted, right? So there are no available leads. But that's where that would show up. And you can see here, it's a pretty standard kind of application in HTML and JavaScript, okay? And again, it's an Angular-based application, wrapped with Cordova, put on these different devices using everything you see here on my desktop, okay? What else do we want to show you with that? I think that's the most important aspects of that. But I think that's pretty cool stuff. And it worked fast. That was insane. It's not worked that fast all week. Back here. Okay. And then I'm hoping you guys will stick around, ask questions, things like that at the end. One thing to mention about Openshift, though, is mention about AeroGear is Openshift. It's available to Openshift. So you're like, okay, I don't want to set up all that stuff on my local server and all that. I don't feel like messing around with that. Well, run it up in the cloud and send push notifications through it there. All right, so keep that in mind. You can just do that. It's all free. Did I mention this is free and open source? We're Red Hat. That's what we do. It's free and open source. Go to town. Go crazy with it. We want you to go crazy with it. We want you to help us find the bugs that might be in it. You might be looking at our documentation and say, you know what, this step isn't quite right. It said do X, and it's really X plus 1. Well, let us know that. We want to hear from you in our IRC channels, in our Jira, etc. Okay, so that's what that looks like on OpenShift. Just go to openshift.com, sign up for an account. You'll see it in the lower right-hand corner. At least it was there this morning. That's when I took the screenshot, and you can launch the OpenShift push notification, or the AeroGear push notification server there. Okay, so the last thing I want to mention, and all the really cool stuff, hopefully you guys thought, well, there's some cool stuff. jQuery mobile, you can design it with Eclipse, etc. I got simulators, I got this cool push thing. I didn't know I could do push, and that's awesome because I can use native. And I guess I didn't show you that. It is the native push notifications. The user can say, I want the dialog box, I want the banner. In Android, it actually has the thing that scrolls down from the top. You can whip them off when you're done with them. It's a standard push notification. I can show you that later if you guys want to see it. So let's talk about Vertex for a few moments. All right, so Vertex is kind of a newer project that we've been sponsoring. Tim Fox came back to work for us not too long ago. And if you guys saw his presentation earlier, hopefully you did, because he did a great job covering the basics. I'm not going to cover the basics. I'm just going to say, hey, here's why it's cool, and I want to show you some things. Okay? Do you some demos for you. But think of it as a JVM-based platform, asynchronous APIs. Some people like to say, hey, that's like Node.js on the JVM. Sure. If you think of Node.js being an asynchronous JavaScript capability on top of V8, this is actually JavaScript on top of the JVM, all right? So you can code your server-side in JavaScript with asynchronous APIs, but you can also code it with Ruby or Python or Java. How novel. You can code in Java. So I like the server-side Java aspects of that because that's who I am. I'll put a little JavaScript in there, but at the end of the day, on the server side, I like doing Java. Is there something wrong with that? Don't throw things at me. I like a little Java on the server side, but you get the asynchronous APIs. It's for non-blocking kind of capability. You get it's actor-like is what we like to say, though it's not specifically actor, the actor model. It has this awesome event bus, which I'm specifically going to show you. So the idea of the event bus is pretty cool. It's the idea that when you set up these various Vertex instances running out there on your server-side network, let's say, they can all communicate with each other in memory. So they can all shuttle messages back and forth. You can broadcast out. Think in terms of like a JMS topic kind of mindset, or you can also do point-to-point, right? Where this message goes to this one individual person. But so you can broadcast messages, you can send messages out across the network, and that also works to the browser, which is pretty cool. So in other words, I have a messaging system between client and server, between browser and server, and all the other browsers. I can update all the browsers in real time. And that might be kind of mind-blowing for some of you. You might be thinking, okay, I saw the push notification thing. It kind of happens after a few seconds because through Google, Apple Find, but that's not really real time. And also those messages have to be tiny, and typically what they do is just pop up little text, to tell the user, hey, new lead, in my case, new data in the system, and it then does the REST call to go back and update the user interface with the right data. So I guess I should have mentioned that. But in this case, we can actually move chunks of JSON data over the wire between browser, server, server, browser, okay? And I think that's pretty awesome. There's also a module registry available to you, so if you don't find the things built into the core, and actually it's a modular architecture such that most things are not in the core, and I'll show you an example of that too, you can actually go out and get these third-party things that have been created and extend the backbone of the system. So let's just kind of show you what this thing looks like. It's very easy to set up and install. There's a couple links, if these demos work, you can get those examples. So let's show you, what am I looking for? Okay, let's go here. Show you, what am I looking for? Okay, let's go here, and let's make sure my Vertex is running. Okay, so this is MongoDB running back here, and yeah, so that's MongoDB, and I have my Vertex now up and running. It starts that fast, and this is the little application. So this is actually created by Lance Ball. I won't take credit for it. I thought it was very clever, though, and so I just want to show it to you. Let's just go down here, and we're gonna, because our screen real estate is so small, I'm gonna just kind of focus in right here. Let's see here. All right, so there's Marcel. All right, we've got to refresh this page. Okay, watch what happens. So you click on the person you like to vote for, and you notice it updates both browsers, right? Boom. Oh, you see this one, so you can see it happening. It updates both. Both users, in this case, this is Firefox, this is Chrome, are seeing the thing happen in real time. All the updates are flowing back and out to all the browsers. Now that's, okay, you're thinking, okay, I saw that in someone else's demo. I've seen this, I've seen that. That's, and I don't even know how I would use that. That's what most people say. Oh, great, you can build a chat application. That's what everyone likes to demo. Well, I didn't want to demo a chat application because guess what? I don't build enterprise systems that need chat all that often. But I dig this concept a lot because if you truly want to try to, it depends on the number of users you have and the kind of network environment they have and things of that nature. But I need them to know as fast as possible that this data has changed. And you guys have used things like Google Docs, I suspect, at this point. Or maybe you've used Etherpad at this point. I don't know if you have, but if you haven't, it's awesome. And you've seen what it means to change the game with real-time collaboration. These people can work together to solve a problem. They can see each other's changes in real time. So this little concept here is kind of cool, but what's even cooler, if you notice, my MongoDB on the server side is also updated in real time. So it's going, based on my click here, all right? It's updating this user interface, that user interface, and the backend, going through the app server to the database as well, and updating the database, all in that moment. So you can see if we just do a find here. So I'm not clicking on Buster or Charlie, just clicking on these others. But if we give them some votes too, we don't want them feeling left out here. And back to the database, you can see there's 3217. So updating those guys in real time. So that's pretty cool. And let's show you a little bit of what that one is. This one's it? Yep. So this is a backbone-based application. So you can build your front end in anything. So that's another point we like to make at Vertex. We don't, you can build your front end in anything. In this case, it's a JavaScript-based front end. And you can see here, it's actually taken the backbone model and mapped it to what is appropriate to be published across our bus and persisted in Mongo. So basically, this little thing right here, publish, is all it takes. Publish and subscribe. Let me show you another example, with one that I specifically worked on because I wanted to have fun with this. Here's the subscribe, okay? And here's the publish. This is just a hacked up thing I did just because I could. So as a JavaScript developer in this specific case, it extends from the browser. You basically drop in the Vertex bus JavaScript file, and there's also the sock.js JavaScript file. So that means it takes advantage of WebSockets if they're there, but it also knows how to degrade gracefully so that it just works across browsers that don't support WebSockets, or if WebSockets aren't supported through your network, through your 3G connection, etc. But publish and subscribe. And then you listen in on their appropriate channels, and then you push the messages across it. So just to show you what this little silly thing does, let's see if this one works. So this is where the most high risk of my demos, because this is just something I hacked together. Let's see if this guy will wake up and work for me. And okay, he says he's connected. Let's go over here. Have a little fun with this one, all right. And change the browser. And all right, let's see if it works. There you go. I don't know if it's hard to, I don't know if you saw that, but let me add some more stuff to it. Let me keep painting here. All right, so basically, as I make doodles on my phone, it's going out, in this case, out to Openshift, across the internet, taking the canvas, publishing it over the event bus for Vertex, and sending it back out across the internet to my desktop right here in real time. And if I update this again, so I can keep doodling. I can bring up all these devices and keep doodling. And let's see here, yeah, that one there. Let's see, so keep that guy painting. All right, you got that one there. Is it going to go through? Oh, did it die on me? This is when I can max it out at times, depending on what I'm doing. Oh, there we go. Sometimes it's network latency, right? It's got to go across our slow network and out to the internet and back again. So that's pretty fun stuff. And just to kind of show you that one more time, right here, it was subscribe. That's the receiving side, if you notice my URL was the receiving side there, I'm just doing a subscribe, and where'd my code go? And I'm basically saying, see if the canvas already exists, so you can update the existing canvas. So, every user is updating their own little canvas on that dashboard, and then I deserialize it because it's a JSON message that came across it. And then on the publication side, so if you look at the publish, where's my JSONify? I just stringify it, the whole canvas. Granted, a good programmer would actually said, let me look at very specific strokes and pixels and things like that. In my case, I said, heck with it, I don't have time to write all this JavaScript code, just send the whole thing up. And it works. So I think that's pretty amazing stuff that you see in the Vertex community. Again, you can write your client-side in JavaScript in this case. You can integrate with the server-side JavaScript if that's what you want, or server-side Ruby, server-side Java. All that's available to you on the Vertex platform. It's a pretty awesome project. I'd encourage you guys all to check it out if you have not. If I can find the right browser window. There we go. Here's the website for it. They manage a Google group. If you want to participate in the community forums, it's the Google group specifically. But you can download all this from GitHub now. My little example application is out there on GitHub if you want to hack on that. Lance's example application with the clown voting is out there on GitHub also. So everybody's living in the GitHub world, which is awesome. Everything's open source. You can download the examples. There's numerous examples that are out there already. And actually some of the stuff you saw takes advantage of those things. But you can now then build little apps that do this kind of real-time update as well, and real-time persistence if that's what you want with the Mongo module that you saw earlier. Okay, well, that's about all I have time for now. Hopefully you guys saw something that you thought was cool. Hopefully, in other words, for your price of 1 hour sitting down here with me today, you guys got a chance maybe to see jQuery Mobile with Cordova, wrapping it with Eclipse, boom, build the app, ship it out to the device. We got that done. We got APNS, Apple Push Notifications. We got Google Cloud Messaging done. And we got this real-time thing to the browser with, doodles from the phone screen, and also, touches and everything updating in real time. So you might be thinking, okay, that guy talks really fast. And I do. But I'm kind of excited about this, if that's not obvious, because I enjoy working with these guys and working with these technologies. I'm not the engineer behind any of these specific projects. We have an amazing team of people, one of which is sitting here in the audience that I see now, maybe a couple more of you. So if you guys have deeper dive questions about these technologies, you go, hey, I really want to know more about X. That was awesome, whatever that thing was. Come see me and we'll find the appropriate person to drill down on that. And we'd love to spend time talking with you down at the Red Hat booth, working on some of these things and talking about your projects. Okay? Any specific questions you want to throw out in the last few moments we have left? Stunned silence, like, oh my God, what was all that? I understand. How do I earn my money specifically? Oh, Red Hat. Yes. How does Red Hat earn money? Well, we're a $1.3 billion company or something of that nature with like 5,000 employees or something greater than that. So specifically, if you think of all this technology that's free and open source and the world of free and open source technology that's out there, there's a whole lot of companies that want to be supported on our enterprise versions of these technologies. They want someone that they can call when things go sideways. And that's very, very important to them. And we run massive infrastructure for very large organizations with thousands of servers. If you bet your business on this kind of technology, there might be someone you want to call if things go bad. And of course, we put all the effort into productizing these capabilities and making sure they're available to you guys. You can, of course, download them, and as developers, take advantage of them fully for free. If you're interested in some of these things, too, as a developer, I'd encourage you to go to jboss.org/developer for the tutorial on Ticket Monster, and you can go to jboss.org/products as an example, and you would see ways to download these are projects I was showing you, open source, pure projects, but even the products are available for download also. So the products are available to you for free. Okay, well, I'm out of time, but thank you guys very much.